Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo saranto suchedoye holahuri sanmyao sanputoshe. Wu shang shen shen wei miao fa bai qian wan jie nan zao yu. Wo jin jian wen de shou chi yuan jie ru lai zhen shi yi. The unsurpassed, deep, profound, subtle, wonderful Dharma in hundreds of thousands of millions of eons is difficult to encounter. Now that I've come to receive and hold it within my sight and hearing, I vow to fathom the thus come one's true and actual meaning. Venerable Master and Dhamma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture tonight. This is the 12th of October. We're here in Berkeley, California, and we're going to be looking into the 10 Grounds chapter of the Flower Garland Sutra. And you'll notice there are 5 guys on the men's side here. One of the reasons is that our team from Highway 9 was coming up under the skillful guidance of someone who shall remain nameless, and they turned onto the Bay Bridge and have to do another round into San Francisco and back out. So they will be here shortly, and if you've ever done that before, it's a helpless feeling as you're heading into San Francisco and there's nowhere to turn around. You made the wrong turn. So they'll be here shortly. And also, those of you who were with us this afternoon and are concerned about Karen and Tam's mom, she's fine. And they think that the problem was dehydration. That she ordinarily at home, she drinks lots of water because it's right there. But all day she was, following the assembly and nobody channeled water to her. And so she was just down in her electrolyte balance, her H2O balance. So she's fine and everything is okay. So now, as we begin, let us recite the name of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the Sutra and invoke their spiritual presence. Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa Na Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa Na Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa Na Mo Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Po Pu Sa Na Fang Guang Fu Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa Na Mo Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa Na Mo Da Fang Guang Huayan Ji Huayan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa. So welcome also to anybody who's joining us online, and very much appreciate our tech crew getting us out to the world via our cameras and our sound and our internet. And we are doing some, not spring cleaning, but autumn cleaning. Very much aware the weather's changed here in Berkeley, and it's getting chilly. And so we're kind of getting the non-essentials out of the way so we can keep preserve through the cold everything that is needs preserving, all the treasures. And in the process of doing that, we discovered lots of interesting artifacts from having lived in one place for 17 years. And one of the things that we've discovered was the computer upstairs that was our first webcast machine when Paltalk was the vehicle. And I had been to a monastery in the Midwest where the monk there sent an audio signal of all his talks out over Paltalk. And it was just him with the microphone speaking Dharma to a lot of people who would wake up very early in Europe. And he would stay awake late, and they would get up early. And they were able to listen to him speak Dharma, and he was doing it into a microphone. And any number of people who wanted to tune in could listen to his audio Dharma. And so we thought, what a great idea. So we hooked up Paltalk here, and we weren't trying to go to Europe, but we were just going out locally. Paltalk was one of the first webcasting kind of conferencing softwares. And we didn't even try video. The refresh rate was like once every 30 seconds. So people would see me sitting there, and then it would click, and I would be like that for 30 seconds. And it was like not very satisfying. You go refresh, and then you wait, refresh. And then we went to Grace Cathedral. And Grace Cathedral, being well-funded and in San Francisco, and of course, if you're in San Francisco, you have a reputation to keep. They were pretty quick with technology, and they had something called GraceCom, which was their whole technology expert team. They contracted with an internet provider, SpiderNet or something, SpiderNet. And you paid. We were paying $50 a week to send out our $200 a month to send out our signal, and very few people were picking it up. And that was video, which is a little better. So we uncovered that computer this week and thought, gee whiz, that was not very long ago. And it's already kind of a fossil. You dig it up out of the books and the pillows, and remember when we used that? That was just a little while ago. Gee. And now we are webcasting out over our own YouTube channel, DRBA Live, and Dharma Realm Live. And who knows, in 3 or 4 years we might look back and think, you remember when we were doing the YouTube channel? What were we thinking, And also, to compound that, in the cleanup process upstairs, I uncovered my mini discs. Anybody ever have a mini disc recorder? They were very popular in Japan. It's a major means of distributing media in Japan. Some artists, singers and such, would release their new album on a mini disc. And mini discs were these square, kind of a blend of a floppy disk and a CD, kind of. And it was limited to 74 minutes. But the best part about it was it's digital sound. And so around the audio track is this deep silence. There's no wave, it's just pure silence. It was a digital signal. It wasn't analog. And I was reviewing, because I've got a sizable number of mini discs, and I remember the mini disc recorder was made by Smart and Sony and different couple companies, and they were beautiful, hard metal technology, great, items. Who listens to mini discs now? Nobody. Gone. Done. And then next to that were my audio tapes, my tape cassettes, looping with the acetate, And it turns out that acetate is still pretty much the most secure archiving solution. It seems to hold its signal longer than even, CDs, DVDs. So we go in and out, and my point in bringing all this up is I've just been in the East Coast seeing something very interesting, which is a Chinese monk, straight line tradition from the past, from 1400 years ago, who was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, walking around talking about Buddhism, okay? So here's this living fossil, who, by the way, is a monk considered to be the most tech-adapted, the monk who is the most tuned in to technology among many of the monks. And yet, compared to these generations of technology that we have adopted and discarded over the years, he wouldn't, you'd have to explain it to him a couple times before he'd get it. But once he saw it, then he'd go, hey, we need that too. He's quick once he sees it. But the tradition in China is quickly catching up, and yet compared to what we take as the water we swim in here in California, it's generations back, So the point is, how do we get the Dharma sound out to the world? How do we do that? And in China, mind you, I haven't started with the text tonight. I'm just kind of riffing on some reflections that I had. But here we were, walking through the Songyang Shuyuan, the Songyang Academy, a school that was a Buddhist monastery back in the Tang Dynasty, 7th century. It got borrowed and then taken over, appropriated by the Confucians, the Neo-Confucians. So by the Song, by the 11th century, it was a Confucian academy where that line of thought was carried on. And what was the medium of good words and good thoughts? A stone tablet, standing up, that somebody had done their beautiful brush calligraphy that was then incised into the granite. And by golly, it is there to this day. You go up and you run your fingers over the characters. They're beautiful, nuanced, tiny little variations in the stone. You can see the character of the character writer. The personality of the calligrapher is right there to be seen. And it's there, it'll be there another 1,000 years because it's in granite, right? And those are words you can count on, words you can take to the monastery, So here we are, words like popcorn, pop, 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 they're gone. I don't want to see this broadcast, click, I'm on another broadcast. This is the BBC, click, And we don't value the weight of our words the way the ancients did, simply by the sheer volume of words available, right? How many, what's the statistic? We have a friend who works for YouTube, actually, Google's YouTube, and they say every minute, 24 hours of video gets uploaded times 100,000? 100,000 days of video? No, that's too many. 10,000 days of video gets uploaded every minute. If you were to watch it one-to-one, a huge amount of content goes into YouTube every minute. And We go, yeah, that's the way it is. And yet, here's the stone tablet in the courtyard of the Songyang Shuyuan, where that sentence has been dispensing its wisdom for 1,000 years, 1,400 years, 1,600 years, right there. Still available 1,000 years from now. So, what are we doing as we propagate the Dharma? Digging out of the balcony, our computer that we used to do Pal Talk on, low 6, 7 years ago, that was cutting edge back then. Now it's, anybody want this? Nope, nobody wants it. It's already a throwaway. So I'm looking at 2 cameras, 2 microphones, and a text that has been here for as long as humanity has been walking around. And yet here we are putting something ageless over something very temporary. Interesting, the juxtaposition of time, space, and knowledge. So, okay, just some reflections. We are on page 36 and 37, and let's see if we can't make sense of this ageless wisdom. See how it connects with our needs and our thoughts today. I'm on the second paragraph, the one that begins, 此菩萨, this Bodhisattva, since this Bodhisattva, okay? Now, we're going to go, I'll just do the first line and a half in the Chinese, and that's the first paragraph in English, and then we'll go, I'll do the rest of it down myself. Here we go, ready? 此菩萨随众生心乐令欢喜故知俗地通达衣食相故知第一义谛觉法自相共相故 Okay. All right. Last week we did the paragraph above, and there's a way to set it up so it makes sense. We're in the 5th ground out of 10, the 10 grounds chapter, and in the 5th ground, the topic is meditation. And this is high-level meditation. This is expert meditation. This is meditation for pros is a word that we use, professionals, but I guess, let's say full-time meditators, people who have taken meditation to the place where it changes you, where your wisdom, where your consciousness is in there telling light from dark, high pitch, low pitch, sweet from sour, fragrant from pungent, harsh from smooth, and idea from its absence, idea from incoherence. The senses are in there discriminating. That's what consciousness does. Consciousness discriminates between these variables. Through meditation, consciousness becomes wisdom. That kind of meditation. So it's not just, I think I'll calm down a little bit, or let me find inner peace. It's not that. That would be casual meditation, because anyone can do that. This is meditation that goes deep and discovers the roots of humanity. That kind of meditation. I am going to ask Marek to sit up front, not in the back, unless you have to go out the back halfway. But we want folks to sit up front. All these empty seats, otherwise people climb over you, right? There we go. All right. And you're going to have to sit on the other side of the robe. All these rules, right? He's got his precept robe. There you go. When you wear your precept robe, then you sit in this. All right. So many rules, man. Wow. Okay. Perfect. That's the very seat. So this kind of meditation is meditation for full-time, dedicated. Now I'm moving everybody forward, right? Because there's all those empty seats. So that's who it is. He's a meditator among meditators. This is someone who is really good at it. And furthermore, last week, what that paragraph did was explain to us truth, more accurately, plural truths, multiple truths, and how the Bodhisattva gets to them. And it's the way this sutra goes is there's usually lists of 10. There's 10 kinds. And the first is always the head, the general, and the rest are the limbs, the specifics. And so truth gets deepened and deepened and deepened and nuanced and adapted and integrated through deeper subtlety. This week, that list comes back. And the way to understand this is every time it gets nuanced another level, bring it back to the starting point, which is what? A quiet mind. A quiet mind. This Bodhisattva is meditating. And when you meditate, something profound happens that even beginners can identify with, which is what? Before we meditate, the mind, our mind, is often a kind of no man's land, no woman's land, terra incognita. Don't know, don't go there much. Where do your memories come from? Well, it kind of pops up. The mind? Yeah. Where do your desires come from? Oh, deep down. I want that. The reptile brain. That's not the mind. Okay. What about when you have to remember somebody's address, somebody's face? You have to remember your multiplication tables from 3rd grade. Oh, that place. Yeah, I kind of know that, right? What happens when you drink a 6-pack? Oh, that is just ocean, just swimming, murky, but that's the place where non-meditators don't go, right? That's kind of the mind before you sit. Now some people are born with a clear mind. Very few random, like white space. They're clear. They have quick recall. They have, some people say, photographic memories. They see it once, they've got it forever, that kind of thing. Who does that? Musicians, often. Mathematicians, often. Writers, sometimes. People who use their minds in a regular way as a tool that is a place where they go. Now, once the person who doesn't have a clue about their mind, who are mostly instinct and murky, and the person whose mind is a database to mine, to pull out facts at a turning of a thought, both of those people can have the same experience when meditating, which is bit by bit you recognize that the mind is like a hotel and thoughts are like guests in the hotel. Why? Because as you sit there, you can watch thoughts rise, dwell, decay, and go. You have to do it. You have to sit there and tune in and listen. But bit by bit, you notice, hey, I had that reaction when I was sitting here, and it's gone now. Oh, hey, that fear, that anxiety, where did it go? It's gone. And a good meditation teacher will take you through exercises whereby you identify, oh, right, those thoughts rise, they dwell, they kind of crumble, and they're gone. After that experience where you can actually notice your thoughts moving into the hotel room and moving away, what you can find is the space between. That's the default quiet from which to read this text. Okay? And I think a lot of people, even if you're not a daily meditator, you can kind of experience that, because sometimes you just do. Sometimes in the moments before sleep, we can kind of get that space, or just upon awakening, before kind of the gears start to turn, we have that experience of kind of stillness. Sometimes standing looking at the Pacific Ocean, or underneath a redwood, or looking at the stars at night, you have this sense of, oh, those thoughts are really insignificant, aren't they? And I haven't had one for minutes, And then, as soon as you have that thought, I notice I just had a thought, right? Then it's like that. So we're talking about that place, okay? The mind gradually dials in, gradually kind of picks up, and then we notice thoughts rising, notice them getting old, notice them decaying, going away, and why don't you take the first one there? And so then, over time, we see the space between. If we can find that, if you can visualize and even appreciate that space right this minute, then we're ready for this chapter, and it starts to make sense. Before we find that space, this seems like a list of semi-unrelated propositions, and it's not. These are links on a chain, pulling us towards the awareness of the Bodhisattva. Okay? Is that an acceptable precondition before we dive into this? Does that make sense? And up above last week we had, he skillfully knows worldly truth. It comes back. Since this Bodhisattva accords with what delights the hearts of living beings and makes them happy, therefore he knows worldly truth. Okay? Can we put our palms together and read the English now in unison? I'm going to start with, since this Bodhisattva. Here we go. You want to join me? Since this Bodhisattva accords with what delights the hearts of living beings and makes them happy, therefore he knows worldly truth. Okay, let's do one more. Since he understands ultimate reality, therefore he knows truth in the primary sense. Lovely. All right. I'm going to be the hard nose again. Feda, we're going to move you forward. Do not plop yourself down there. Good. We have all these empty seats, and everybody goes for the back row. Wrong. Right? We want people to... Shifu used to really get hard on us and say, he would say, don't be so selfish. Don't force people to climb over you because you were lazy and wanted to sit in the back. So the last 3 guys have all taken the back. Last 4. So there we go. Okay. So the last week's list links to this week's list because now we got the motive. Why? Why is this true? 10 kinds of truth. 10 different kinds of truth. Right? Since this Bodhisattva accords with what delights the hearts of living beings and can make them happy, and what makes them happy, therefore he knows worldly truth. There's a causative here. Because of this, therefore this. There's a link there, right? Since, you can just say because. The Bodhisattva knows worldly truth. What is worldly truth? It's things, you could say, common culture. It's what's hip. It's what's in the newspaper, what's on the TV, what's on MSNBC, what people are talking about. Worldly truth. And it's truth. It's the deeper... It's not simply phenomena. It's what people actually think. The Bodhisattva is tuned into that. He, she this is gender non-specific, is aware of what people, they say, on the street, on the Arab street, they talk about, what they know, what they think. Because he's like, wants to be hip? Well, only to the point that he can accord with what delights the hearts of living beings and makes them happy. Okay. Why is that true? Why is that the case? Because the Bodhisattva has made vows to, this is our Buddhist lingo, we fall right into our Buddhist vocabulary here. He wants to take them across. Take them across. What does that mean? What does it mean to take somebody across? It means you could switch the word, switch the verb. He wants to wake us up. Not them, us. The Bodhisattva wants living beings to wake up from what is in the jargon our normal state, which is 醉生梦死. The Buddha described himself before he woke up as born drunk and dying in a dream. He says that's our state. We are asleep with our eyes open right now. And is that a slam on living beings? You betcha, said Sarah Palin. You betcha. It really is. That's exactly where we are. We're unaware of where we came from. We're pretty much unclear on our motivations at the moment, and we're clueless about where we're going. Except my mom knows that if she lives a good Christian life, she is going to sit at the right hand of God upon death. And I say, more power to her, right? That's the promise of my mother's faith, and it is deep-rooted, and I support it. She still doesn't know. You know, there's always that question, because you have to wait for grace, but that's okay. That's all right. We don't know where we came from. We don't know where we're going. And mostly what's going to happen tomorrow for lunch, we maybe know, but not for sure. Is the U.S. government going to default on its loans in another week? We don't know. It's brinkmanship. We don't know, right? Born drunk, dying in a dream, said the Buddha. That's our state. And yeah, pretty much that's true. And in the midst of that process is lots and lots of skullduggery. Brian, I'm going to do it again. Please move forward. I see 5 seats. We're going to get you guys in the habit of not taking the last row when you arrive, all right? Now, you need a precept sash to sit in these front 2, but there's one right next to Feda that's got your name on it. All right. There we go, yeah. All right. Good stuff. So, born drunk, dying in a dream. The Buddha wants to wake us up. The Bodhisattva wants to take us across from this shore of birth and death, across the flow of affliction, greed, anger, delusion, pride, doubt, to the other shore of nirvana. That's called taken across. He wants to raft us across. From this shore of San Francisco to the other shore of Marin County, by golly. Marin County equivalent of nirvana, I guess it depends upon your income, what car you're driving. So he wants to take us across. He wants to wake us up. He's made vows to do that. In order to do that, he has to make us happy, mostly. A few people will be taken across by intimidation, very few. Mostly, people change because there's something in it for them, because it's sweeter over there. So the Bodhisattva makes it sweeter, or at least less painful, less bitter, and living beings come. Now, in that is something profound for the monastics at City of 10,000 Buddhas, men and women both, because very few people will be taken across by bitterness, right? And a frown, a scowl, ignoring, coldness, doesn't make us happy, right? You'll notice, right? And if you're concerned, if the Bodhisattva's vows somehow make sense to you, if that lights your heart on fire, I would like to take beings across. I would like to help my mom, my brother, my sister, my dad, my friends, my teacher, my students wake up. Then I want to learn what they know. What do they know? They say, the Bodhisattva accords with what delights the hearts of living beings and makes them happy, therefore he can take them across. And he has to know worldly truth. He has to know what's going on. Okay? So, what's at stake here? This is profoundly subtle and beautifully true, worldly truth. Look at this. Monks in China, and mostly monks. We didn't meet that many nuns because there aren't that many in China. It's harder to leave home as a woman in China than it is in America. But the monks there, the best of them, are concerned that there are very few young people in the monasteries. If a monk decides he's going to lecture on a text, you know who comes? Buddhists. People with beads around their wrist already. People who have been Buddhists for a long time. Very few young people will pull their heads out of their computers long enough to go listen to a lecture on Buddhism. Not very many. The best monks are concerned about that. How do you bring young people in? Well, I get asked that. And when I look at the situation facing those monks, as I say, it's beautifully, ironically tragic. Because what? To come into a Buddhist lecture in a monastery, you are walking over stones that have had footsteps, have had monk shoes walking over those stones for 1,600 years in some case. Longhua Monastery, Dragonflower Monastery, downtown Shanghai. They say Longhua Monastery was there before Shanghai existed, right? It was the monastery first, and Shanghai grew up around Longhua Tree, the Longhua district. It's old, right? It's been there since the 5th century. Okay, so it's beautiful. When you go there, these trees, these roofs, these walls, the stones under your feet have had Buddhists there for all these centuries. And the feeling is profound. The feeling is rooted in tradition. It's just wonderful to be in that space where so many people striving for awakening have cultivated there before you. Until you want to draw young people in and get them excited about applying the Dharma to their lives. Why? Tradition is a gilded cage. You cannot innovate. You cannot change it. You can't do it differently than it's been done for all those hundreds of years, simply because nobody's ever done it that way, and it's not done. Tradition is a big, strong wall. And these monks look around and they think, who's going to come listen to a sutra lecture when before you can open the texts, you have to sing all the praises, which take half an hour. Half an hour later, it's like, go away. So that's the way it's always been done that way. To do it any other way is like, impertinent. Who do you think you are? So how do you make living beings happy when you've got this boulder of tradition to roll uphill before you can open your mouth, right? Now, they're keenly aware of that. And, so I show up with my guitar, right? And young people go, anybody looking? I want to go listen to what he has. Nobody look. Okay, I want to go listen. As soon as somebody goes, where are you going? Sutra lecture. It's like, because it's like repercussions, So it's ironically tragic and beautiful because here you are in this splendid Buddhist sacred space where all the great masters of the past have walked and sat and meditated. But if you want to accord with the digital generation, can't do it there really much. Can't. You have to bring everybody in the same old door. You can't open a new door. You can't open a new window. You have to go somewhere else to do it, such as Berkeley, California. All right, so there you are. What delights the hearts of living beings and makes them happy? The Bodhisattva needs to know worldly truth. He has to accord with the time, with the language, with the knowledge, with the cultural memes, with the means of communicating those patterns and perceptions. Or else, it's a different language. He's speaking a language nobody's speaking any longer. So, how interesting. So our teacher, for example, and I was just at the Memorial Church in Harvard Yard, the Harvard Divinity School, speaking next to the monk who is holding those traditions, bringing them forward. So we had the old and the new, side by side. And one of the points that I made about Buddhism in the West is our teacher, our founder, was profoundly a critic of the Chinese cultural accretions around the Buddha's teaching. Some of them he defended to the core. Others he said, this is not Buddha Dharma, this is Chinese religiosity. This is the Chinese church. And we need to set that aside and go to the heart of the Dharma, he said. Not all things. Some of them, for example, the emphasis on virtue is same as the heart of the Dharma. But he said, here's one. I want you to hear the voice of the Buddha. Use your own wisdom. You're qualified, he said. Nobody says that in China. So what's the Buddha's voice? Since this Bodhisattva accords with what delights the hearts of living beings and makes them happy, therefore he knows worldly truth. There you go. In China, before you could read that sentence, you would have to check commentaries. You'd have to go find out how the monks in the Tang interpreted that, because there are consequences for each interpretation. Schools grew up around this version and that version. They are competing schools of thought, and there's critiques of the competing school. It's an institution. There's the Church of the Dharma that built up around any institution that's been around for 1,800 years. Naturally, right? Buddhism has been in China that way for so long, it's set in stone. So Master Hua said, okay, that's good. We honor that, respect it, set it aside. What do you think this means? Right? And he would say, judge it. Okay, there's an attitude in China, and I'm sure it's there in the Vatican. I'm sure it's there. Every individual who comes, they're going to fall into my trap. Locke, don't sit in the back row. Everybody who comes, last 5 guys have done it, sat where Locke's at. We got a bunch of seats where we'd like you to move forward. There we go. All right, yeah. Good. Thank you. Who do you think's the next one? Okay. Yeah. What's that? Whoopee cushions in the back. Yeah. Or little dogs that come on and bite your ankle. So, now, there are some folks who want to sit in the back, and that's fine, back. But we want people to fill in the front first. That's the point. Okay, so there's an attitude in Asian scholarship that doesn't assume, it's subtle, it's hard to catch, the right to encounter the text directly. That would be proud. It has to do with individualism and rugged individualism, the sense of blazing a trail through the West that we have innate in our bones in the West. Sure. What's to say? Since this Bodhisattva, what's a Bodhisattva? Anybody tell me? Okay, but it's a Bodhisattva court, we plunge right in. That's kind of this Western notion. In Asia, the thought is, I'm not sure I dare, even to touch the text. It's true. And you have to be qualified before you would assume that you would have enough background to even go near it, right? So, Master Hua was very aware of that tradition and keenly aware of the West and said, I'm going to lecture on these texts for 90 minutes every night, without exception. You guys come if you like, see what you think. Does it make sense to you? Can you apply it in your lives? Use it like a mirror. Use it like medicine. Use it like a map. Use it like a blueprint. Build your house around these dimensions, because why? It'll stand. Right? Travel on this map. It'll get you there, he said. Right? Not in so many words, but I'm interpreting. All right? So, here I was at the Harvard Chapel, at the Memorial Church, saying, in this country, we want to meet the Buddha's voice. Fresh. Try it. Open the sutras. What do you think? Right? Now, what was my first clue that this was a disjunct, a brokenness here? When I did my dissertation on this same text, I went to dig for interpretations of the text I was working on. And people said, oh, the Avatamsaka Sutra, that's the Buddha's highest peak of philosophy. Very profound. We don't lecture on it. Too deep, too lofty, too profound, too difficult. Okay? So, I thought, oh, that's interesting. How come our teacher spent 9 years explaining it to us every night? Let me see here. The Bodhisattva accords with what delights the hearts of living beings. He makes them happy, and he knows worldly truth. Philosophical? No. What's worldly truth? What's going on? Worldly truth is what we understand. Right? So, what makes us happy and delights us? I get it. Right away, I get it. Is that profound? No. Throughout the Avatamsaka, I found heart, not abstract principle. You can find abstract principle in it, but this is heart. What makes you happy? I'll teach you that. It's true. Right? From there, we'll understand truth, so I can wake you up. That is heart. There's head there, but it's heart, right? I find this to be a living document that I recognize in the mirror. Okay? It's not up there somewhere that only who's qualified to interpret it for me? Some expert? Some specialist? Some professional sutra lecturer? Way to go, David. Notice what he did? Yay, all right. Me? What? Me? You didn't sit in the back row. See? He pays attention when I say things, you guys. Now I'm just going to yell. Okay, there we go. So you were motivated. Yeah. No, that's good. Okay, got it. Now, so I made that point, and people went, I didn't realize all that was involved in explaining sutras. We go for the Buddha's voice. If I were to do this in China, you know what they would say? 冒昧. 你有什么资格? What right do you have? Presumptuous kid. You know. And guess what? A lot of young people would show up. Maybe because it's 冒昧, you know, because I'm presumptuous. Now, is it that the Chinese are wrong? No, it's because that's what happens when an institution gets set anywhere after 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, in this case, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, is you do it the same way over and over again. So, that's one of the benefits of starting fresh in a new country. You don't have to carry the baggage. Set the suitcases down, criticize, critique what's not working, go for the heart of it, and bring it to life. All right. So, should I ding her? Okay. Sandy, we're moving up. We're filling up the empty spaces. All right. There we go. Yeah. All right. Not that I'm naming names. Nobody's embarrassed. But, okay. Since he understands the ultimate reality, therefore he knows truth in the primary sense. Okay, how did we explain ultimate reality and truth in the primary sense? Truth in the primary sense, you'll notice this is going backwards from the order before. It's taking the truth in the primary sense becomes the result, and the cause is the first. Because the Bodhisattva understands ultimate reality, therefore he knows truth in the primary sense. Let's apply our method. Go back to stillness in your meditative state, between thoughts, sitting there. What is ultimate reality? In this case, ultimate reality is everything is made up of component parts. Conditioned dharmas is the name of ultimate reality. Everything comes together made up of other stuff. There are only two unconditioned dharmas. Space, the air, space, and nirvana, which is neither produced nor destroyed. It's not born, it doesn't die. It doesn't come about because of other stuff. Everything else, conditioned dharmas, brought together because of components. From our bodies to our planet to these beautiful mums, to the tea in the cup, conditioned dharmas. That's ultimate reality. So, he knows truth in the primary sense. Truth in the primary sense, Buddhist jargon. Again, this is a technical term. D-E-E-D. What is truth in the primary sense? The self is constructed. The ego is not exactly the self. It works as to get a grip on it. Ego is a term that Freud used to describe kind of the coming together of these forces in our conscious and unconscious minds. Kind of accords with the self. What is the self? The self is built out of pieces. There's no permanent, lasting self. Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. It's made up of other stuff. I am, the I in the I am is made up of stuff. Such as what? Body, mind, feelings, random thoughts, deeper constructs of the mind like metabolism, respiration, digestion, elimination, all those autonomic functions, that's part of the self, and then consciousness itself. Those are the pieces: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, sight, sound, smells, tastes, sensations of touch, and dharmas. The consciousness of sight, sound, smells, taste, sensation of touch. So, organ, object, consciousness, 18 realms, that's the self. Show me sight. Can't do it. Sight exists when eye contacts color, light, darkness. When those conditions come together, sight exists. Take the conditions away, sight is gone. But nobody, even blind people, see darkness. Okay? So that's a conditioned dharma. The self is made up of many pieces just like that. Doesn't really exist permanently as a discrete entity. That's truth in the primary sense. There is no discrete, ultimate thing called me. That's what the Buddha woke up to. He unpacked the self successfully until there wasn't anything left. Okay, that's interesting. Says the Buddha, that's truth in the primary sense. And yet we live in the midst of these constructed selves. They are what we use to get through life. Somebody who's awake doesn't take it as permanent, doesn't take it so strongly, doesn't defend it to the ultimate point. And from the self, you can go out to family, job, country, race, species, also constructed. Helps you absorb a lot of blows without having to fight back if you don't take it quite so seriously. Sometimes you have to, right? But this is where we're going. This is where Buddhism is really, really useful. Why? Who else talks about that? Who else gives us this perspective on things that, wow, commercial culture will tell you, you deserve a break today, right? What's going to make you go to war? Harm to your profit, to your revenue stream. There are theorists that say once a nation's gross national product is threatened beyond like 2.5%, you start to arm, you start to mobilize. That the real motivator for war is economic, some theorists say, and they can even plot it. When do countries go to war? When their economic well-being is threatened beyond 3%, kind of thing. It's like, if suddenly China said, we are going to buy all of the oil coming out of Kuwait, how quickly would America start to identify China as our number one enemy? Pretty quick, right? Why? Economic interests are threatened. That's truth in the primary sense applied with ignorance. Why? Our well-being has to do with that oil, etc. Okay, you get the idea. Okay, how are we doing? Is it, all right, people are going, it's kind of thick going, Dharma Master. Can you give us a break for a minute? All right. What is the antidote to pursuing that self-interest? Is selflessness, giving. What do you do when that self gets too big and too powerful? When it gets so hard to drop that you feel choked by me and mine, you give. Generosity is the antidote, all right? How many people read Grapes of Wrath? Steinbeck, right? We all know I read every Steinbeck book he wrote, and the plays, Burning Bright. I'm a Scorpio with a Pisces moon. John Steinbeck is a Pisces with a Scorpio moon. Talks to me. I get it. So, Chris Christopherson is a wonderful songwriter. He took one of the scenes from Grapes of Wrath, turned it into a song. Do you all remember when I did this last time here? Is anybody here when they heard this? Here Comes That Rainbow Again. Some do, some don't. Okay. This is a John Steinbeck novel anecdote vignette turned into a song by Chris Christopherson, which is, to my mind, a Buddhist song talking about generosity, giving self-interest away. Beautiful song, very short, but if more songs could tell stories like this one, we could have a better grasp of truth in the primary sense, right? This is truth in the primary sense. The scene was a small roadside cafe. The waitress was sweeping the floor. 2 truck drivers drinking their coffee, and 2 oaky kids by the door. How much are them candies? They asked her. How much have you got? She replied. We've only a penny between us. Them's 2 for a penny, she lied. The daylight grew heavy with thunder, with the smell of the rain on the wind. Ain't it just like a human? Here comes that rainbow again. Okay, you got the scene. You know what Okies are? People from Oklahoma who were displaced by the Dust Bowl. The Dust Bowl came and wiped out their livelihood, wiped out their farms, killed their cattle, pigs. Some people said, we just wait. It's going to go away. The rain's going to come. We've been here for generations. How can we just pick up and go? Let's just wait. Well, the rain didn't come. And out in the fields were the bones of their cattle. No work, no food. All the neighbors got trucks, wheelbarrows, put grandma in the wheelbarrow, headed for California, called Okies. Thousands of people on the highway, Route 66, heading for California because why? You know, there's work in California. So they said. So here are the kids looking at the penny candies in the cafe. They got 1 penny between them. The scene was a small roadside cafe. The waitress was sweeping the floor. Truck drivers drinking their coffee, and 2 oaky kids by the door. How much are them candies? They asked her. How much have you got? She replied. We've only a penny between us. Them's 2 for a penny, she lied. And the daylight grew heavy with thunder, with the smell of the rain on the wind. Ain't it just like a human? Here comes that rainbow again. One truck driver called to the waitress after the kids went outside. Them candies ain't 2 for a penny. Well, what's it to you? She replied. In silence they finished their coffee. They got up, they nodded goodbye. She called, hey, you left too much money. So what's it to you? They replied. And the daylight was heavy with thunder, with the smell of the rain on the wind. Ain't it just like a human? Here comes that rainbow again. That's it. 2 verses to the song. I love it. It's just called Pay It Forward, right? Did you all get it, right? The truck drivers asked the waitress, they said, the candies aren't 2 for a penny. She said, what's it to you? So she gave the candy to the kids, right? The truck drivers paid it forward. One truck driver called to the waitress after the kids went outside. Them candies ain't 2 for a penny. So what's it to you? She replied. In silence they finished their coffee. They got up, they nodded goodbye. She called, hey, you left too much money. So what's it to you? They replied. Daylight was heavy with thunder, with the smell of the rain on the wind. Ain't it just like a human? Here comes that rainbow again. So that's John Steinbeck via Chris Christopherson, talking about a Buddhist principle called generosity, to cross over the self when it gets too heavy, that constructed self. We need more songs like that. By golly. Okay, now we're going to number 3. It goes like this. 觉法自相共相悟智相力. Since he awakens to the unified reality and the common appearances of all dharmas, therefore he knows the truth of appearances. Let's look at the Chinese for this one. 觉, we're on, by the way, page 36, line 2. 觉, to wake up. 法, dharmas. 自相共相 gu. See that xiang twice? X-I-A-N-G. That's appearance, the features, the things your senses observe. What you see with your eyes, what you hear with your ears, that's all xiang, right? There are 2 kinds. 自相, in individual appearance, and 共相, common, shared in common. What do you say? Personal and universal. So he wakes up to the individual appearance of dharmas and their shared appearance of dharmas, because, since, therefore, 知相地, he knows the truth of appearances. What is the truth of appearances? It's that they're different according to the perceiver. Where's beauty? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Isn't it? Really, really true. An example that comes directly from what you just observed. There are Buddhists who think that a monk who plays guitar has just broken the precepts and is no longer trustworthy. Why? Well, the precepts say that. Monks don't play music. Mind you, we play 2.5 hours of that kind of music, just different instruments, right? Guitars are rock and roll. Guitars are the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Cream, the Who, right? Why? Because that's where we first heard them in Thailand. Nobody plays guitar in Thailand except that's what guitars are for. Well, in the West, that's not true. We sing songs from Steinbeck novels. It's a folk instrument in the West. It's been around, it was a cowboy instrument originally, right? So, different perception. Here in this country, guitar-playing monk, well, we heard of the singing nun, so why not the singing monk, right? You got a context for it, right? Not a big deal. We don't know those rigid criteria. Same guitar, same monk, different perception. right? Based on appearances to you. So, in Sydney, there's a beautiful little Buddhist temple on the second floor of right downtown, right in Chinatown, the oldest part of Sydney, down across from the market. It's a Thai temple. It's called Bodhikusuma. And in that Thai temple, if I were to reach for this, they would actually probably ask me to step off the Dharma seat. Sorry, you've disqualified yourself. Didn't take the guitar in, sang the very same songs, and they all went, so lovely, we needed that. Why don't you do that more? More monks should sing to us, just not with a guitar. How funny, right? This makes all the difference. Okay, all right, so that's the way it is. You understand, I'm interested in people getting the principle and going, makes sense to me. That's what I'm interested in. That's a tool. If it's a counterproductive tool, if it gets in the way, no thanks, no need, right? So, perception, appearance, the appearance. What's the difference between the appearance and the reality? Everything, right? What's the reality? Conditioned dharmas. The reality is spruce, mahogany, ebony, aluminum, steel. What guitar? Right? What's the difference between spruce and mahogany? It's hydrocarbons. It's come together, it'll burn, it's organic, it grew, it used to be a tree. Where's the guitar? Right? So that's the reality. All constructed. It's all put together from other stuff. So the Bodhisattva says, yeah, there is a unified reality, which is everything comes from other stuff, and the common appearances of all dharmas, and he knows the truth of appearances. Unified reality, bad translation. Specific. The specific appearance. Let's see. Okay, 觉法, he awakens to the unified reality and the common appearances. Oop, bad translation. It should be specific appearance and common appearance. The specific and the shared, right? That's I don't see unified reality. I don't know where that came from. I see we want to circle that one. Shared is better than common, unless you change. Common can be okay, like shared in common would be better. And specific appearance. Or unique, better than specific. What's unique about this carnation, and yet it's also a flower, right? The generic and the individual. Okay, therefore he knows the truth of appearances, which is interpreted by the perceiver. What is the appearance? It depends on the light, if it's visual, the light, the eye organ, how clear, whether you have cataracts, whether you're wearing glasses, whether it's daylight, whether it's dark. All those things go into the making up the truth of appearances. Okay, got it? So the Bodhisattva is tuned into all of this stuff. Why? Because he has to explain the Dharma. He needs to know what people are understanding and seeing before he can say something like a doctor. The Chinese doctors, when they take your pulse, they're going, let's see, what season is it? Oh, we're going to winter. Oh, what's your basic makeup? Pitta, Kapha, Vata, right? What did you eat? What is your age? What's your body mass, right? What time of day is it? All of that information is going into their skillful reading of your inner makeup before they say, oh, I know exactly how to change the symptoms that you got. You need a formula made of this and that. Or I'm going to put a needle here or there because you need this to balance. All of those things are involved in the truth of appearances. Okay? So the Bodhisattva is the same. It's a shifting landscape. Nothing's fixed. Next. 了诸法分位区别故知区别地. Since he comprehends the differences in how dharmas are set up, therefore he knows the truth of discriminations. Let's look at the Chinese. Liao understands, he comprehends, 诸法 dharmas, small d dharmas, meaning phenomena, things that the senses interact with. 分位, they're different places. They're different locations. You could even say statuses. They're different status. 区别, differences among. He understands the differences among dharma's distinct places or locations or status in a hierarchy. He knows those things. Therefore, 知, he knows the truth of, the Chinese says 区别, it's 区别, 差别 sometimes. Three pronunciations for one word. 知差别地. He knows the difference between distinctions, the differences among, the truth of the differences, discriminations. A little complicated to translate succinctly, but he understands that dharmas are different. Like what? Babies are not adults. Adolescents are not elders. Every human goes through 9 months in the womb, infancy, childhood, adolescence, maturity, elderness, age, and demise. And the Buddha would say it comes around again. Okay? So we go through all those different phases. 生老病死苦. We go through birth, old age, sickness, death, rebirth. Those are different stages, phases, right? We all go through those. The Bodhisattva looks at those different fun way, the different stages and places, and goes, okay, this is a kid. I communicate to them, to him, her, differently than I do to someone my own age. Okay, so, in terms of speaking Dharma to living beings, it's good information. That's what the Bodhisattva knows as she is meditating there, preparing to speak Dharma, to make them happy, so they'll wake up. Okay, how are we doing in this kind of hierarchy of priorities here? Starting to make sense? Let's bring it down. Suppose you are a parent trying to teach your kid how to be not so selfish. You see, your kid only knows, I want, right? And they're about 5 and 6, and it's time for them to kind of look at their siblings and recognize that they're not the only person in the family whose needs need to be met. Parents go through that time, right? Trying to socialize your kid, get them to be a little less selfish. Challenge, huh? You have to pick your time. You have to know what the kid likes. You have to do it without preferencing the sibling, right? It's really complex and tricky. Parents know it spontaneously. They know it inherently how to do it. Bodhisattva deals with the people he's trying to teach like his own kids. It's really complicated. You can't praise one without making the others jealous. If you don't give them some praise, they'll all feel abandoned. They won't feel connected. How complicated is that? There we are. Right? Anybody raise puppies? In many litters, there's one runt, right? The runt of the litter needs special attention. Otherwise, he won't get fed. He's always the last one to the food bowl. The other puppies just charge in there. And the runt kind of hangs back and doesn't get fed. So you have to give him a little special, you know. And that could be your favorite as you raise the puppies, you know. there's usually a leader. There's an alpha in every group, the leader. And you have to kind of bring that one back so he can learn to connect with the others. I spent a summer in Aspen, way up high in the Rockies. And near Aspen, there's a place called Toklat, T-O-K-L-A-T. Toklat was this, doesn't even deserve to be called a village. It was just this little bend in the road. And the main attraction at Toklat was Stuart Mace and his huskies. Stuart raised sled dogs. And it was one of the few sled dog raising places in the continental U.S., a lot in Alaska, more snow. But Stuart Mace was raising sled dogs, and I was there in the summer, the off-season, right? And so he would give you, during the winter, they're just busy all the time. The dogs are always out pulling sleds across the snow. And in the summer, they're kind of getting fat and breeding and raising little sled dogs. And so he took us around and introduced us to the dogs. And one of the number one things you do with young sled dogs is find the lead dog. Find the leader. And he explained to us the psychology of the leaders among sled dogs. Fascinating. You can only have one. Some litters, there'll be 2 lead dogs. You gotta send one away, or sometimes they off it, because 2 alphas don't work together. And if you find the right lead dog, you have a gem, a diamond. And often it's the eyes. They can tell by looking among the puppies who's going to be the alpha. And I forget the combinations, like brown and blue or blue and brown. And a certain quality that sets the lead dog apart. And they can tell within the first month which one out of the litter is going to be a lead dog. Sometimes there isn't one. But when they get a lead dog, the sled driver, the sled team trainers will give that dog special attention and teach it stuff, because its ability to learn surpasses all the other dogs. It has a distinct personality. It sees the world differently. And that dog is invaluable. You can't do without one. You have to have at least one. Can't have 2. But if you have one and you know how to train him, that dog will put all the other dogs in line. Your life is easy because that dog disciplines all the others and will carry you. You can communicate with that dog. And Stuart Mace's dog, his leader was called Lika, and he'd be talking to us, and he would say, "Okay, here we go," and he'd go, "Lika, Lika," and Lika would go, and all the other dogs, and they would all sing. And they would wait for Lika to set the pitch and decide whether it was Bach that day or whether it was Scarlatti, I'm kidding about that part. But Lika would set the pitch and the other dogs would all chime in. And when those dogs were singing, even if you didn't have hair, your hair would stand up. It was just like, a dog pack singing. And you go, where have I heard that sound in my deep consciousness? Wolves, I'm not sure. Coyote, nope. Alaskan Malamute, sled dogs. Fascinating. 区别相. The truth of distinctions. 分位. What is it? 了知法. 分位区别故. Seeing the lead dog among the sled dogs? Not the same at all. Same mother, same litter. One of them comes out, if you're lucky, to be alpha. Different processor up there. Different computer. You can talk to that dog. Stuart Mace would talk about what he and his favorite lead dogs over the years could do together, how he could give that dog instructions at 35 miles an hour going over the ice with 8 dogs in line, and the guide dog would be waiting for instruction. And Stuart would, whistle and shout and talk. Stop. Beautiful. Okay, one more. 善分别蕴界处故知成立地. Since he comprehends the difference, since he is good at distinguishing the skandhas, realms, and places, therefore he knows the truth of setting things up. What does the Chinese say? 善分别. He is really skillful at discriminating, at knowing between 蕴界处, the skandhas, the realms, and the places. These are the components of the personality. Skandhas are the 5 skandhas that make up our personality. The jia, the realms, the jia are the organs, the sense objects, and the discriminations, the consciousness between them. Chu, the 12 organs and objects. This is the Buddha's personality inventory. Because the Bodhisattva can really tell among them, 知成立地. He knows how to set up what? Knowledge. He knows this person has perfect pitch, for example, ear organ. Because of perfect pitch, he can speak in musical metaphors. This person is very sensitive to that. This person over here has very keen discriminating tongue and nose and tongue. Cook. He can talk about nutrition, excuse me, and food and drink, and this person will respond. Someone else, nah, it's just food, right? So he's very aware. This person is tuned into siblings. Their sensitivities go sideways, and so he's able to talk about fairness to this person, and they get it because they see how much it hurts when somebody's favored and somebody's ignored, right? Bodhisattva uses all this knowledge, the skillful discrimination, in order to teach and to accord with what delights the hearts of living beings and makes them happy, and teaches them the Dharma. There you go. So we're going to stop at that point because the time is up for this week, and continue with 觉诸去生相续故知生地. All right? Now, this time next week, I'm going to be in LA talking at vegsource.com, Healthy Lifestyle Expo. This is the time for our annual vegetarian conference down in LA. And Jin Fan Shi is coming. Master Jin Fan will be here, continuing at that point. And will you translate for him? Okay, so our home team will do the translation. So it should be lively. Please do come. Master Jin Fan has got a treasury of skillful means to explain the Dharma and show him support, ask him questions, challenge him, make him glad he comes down to Berkeley. Because there's a clean wind blowing through this Buddha hall in terms of learning Dharma. And it invigorates the monks, myself included. So that's coming up next week. My topic, we're still working on it. It's a group effort this time. I'm going to talk about, let's see, let's dedicate merit first, all right? Transfer the merit and then go into it. So you've got it in your Dharma request sheet there, that green sheet comes with your sutra. Do you have it? Maybe you don't. this was recorded on this 12-string guitar. It's tuned a half step down. So although it's in C, it's actually in D sharp. It's in C flat. Is there a C flat, Steve? C flat. How many sharps? How many flats is that? All of them. All 5. Yeah. So D sharp, C flat. All 7? Every note is flattened. So instead of da dee da 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 da, it's da dee da 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 dum. And I do that, number one, because it's easier to play. When this is tuned up to concert pitch, it's a bear on your fingers. 2, it suits my voice a little better. But it is a step lower than we're used to. Also, during lunch today, one of our community said, "Do you pray for animals that are suffering?" And I had a lot of things I could have said. The simplest thing was, yes, we do. One of the things I could have said was, we pray for everybody who's suffering. And I didn't want to complicate it, so I said yes. And it's a terrier, 12-year-old terrier, whose name was what? Versace. Suffering. Fashionable terrier, probably has. And the point is, beings wearing animals' bodies may not have been animals in the past life. Chances are they won't be animals in the future life. And we, wearing our human bodies, will not always humans and won't always be humans. So it's a fellow living being currently in an animal's body who needs some help, and that's a perfectly good place to transfer merit. I hope folks will also aim, go for the macro and go for the, as well as the micro. America needs all the help it can get. We're actually at a perilous place. And our beloved president, it would be such a shame if his tenure as president was defined by situations he can't control, right? Right now, he can't control what's going on. He is as much a part of it as any of us, and I want his presidency to be defined by positive things, not by things like debt crises manufactured by rich people to destroy reason and compassion, which I think is actually going on. Not that we need to talk about that specifically, but we need help. America is in a crisis right now. It's a big one, and it's coming to a head soon. So I believe that transference of merit, and how do you transfer in a situation like this? I would say transfer that people avoid pain and maximize well-being for most, not for the few. We can transfer that wish that suffering is decreased and well-being is increased. That's a positive place to transfer merit. So we'll see. This week was critical. So you could transfer to the victims of this giant megastorm that just hit the coast of India, Orissa, southern India. A huge, huge, scary tornado at sea. Anybody read my blog, Dharma Forest? Okay, I didn't post for months, but in China. But the last post, who was it? I forget the agency who does measurement of climate change, says that now we are on an irrevocable course for tragic weather disasters to be the norm by 2047. If we don't turn around by 2047, we're locked in, they said. And this is based on carbon dating tests. Humanity has been through extinctions before, and most of the extinctions had to do with temperature rising Once it was because of a comet, hitting, but they can date it to major temperature rises, and if we don't change our carbon output into the universe, into the atmosphere, by 2047, we're locked in, and we're heading for another extinction. So, and it was said just at this matter-of-fact, data-based statement, and you go, gee whiz, I take that seriously, that's scary. What are the chances we're going to change? 2047, 2013, 47 from 13, I'll still be alive. What about your kids? What about your kids' kids? What are they going to be facing? So, transfer that merit that we wake up and start thinking for the good of all instead of my company, my bank book, my family, myself, right? So that's how we can transfer merit. Should you choose, you can transfer to Karen's mom, who, what a professional bunch of medics showed up today. Boy, oh boy, I was impressed with him. The Berkeley Fire Department. We called 911 today because Karen's mom had an attack. She fainted during the afternoon and dehydrated. She was dehydrated. But all of her systems are fine, and when she rehydrated, she was fine. But this bunch of 5 medics, EMT, came in, and they were so good. Gentle, sensitive, knowledgeable, on the spot. They carried her out, put her in the gurney, took her away, and she's fine. They were here within about 120 seconds from the phone call. Anybody else notice that? It was like, bang, they were here and took her away, and she's fine. Good for them. Good bunch. So there are blessings in the midst of that. Here we go. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may their minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light break the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. So we were talking about veg source. Hi, haven't seen you for a while. Whose fault is that? Well, good point. What are you doing here?
Well, I've been asked by the other puppets. They heard that Veg Source is happening again, and they want to know who you're going to take.
Oh, so you're the representative?
Yeah, I'm the union boss.
Mm-hmm. Did you intimidate your way into...
Who wants to know?
Okay, you intimidate me.
No,
Okay, all right. So, they want to know who's going?
right.
Well, who we got?
Well, I went last year,
That's right, you were a hit.
of course. I'm always a hit. Must be my eyes.
I think so, yeah. Okay, well, who else?
Well, the year before, it was the pig and the snail.
Yeah?
Don't take the snail again.
Okay, didn't work so well?
Well, it's kind of creepy, People can't identify. And besides, at a vegetarian conference, they can't relate. They don't eat snails.
So, okay. All right, well, who can we take?
Well, it's the dragon year, the year before, so don't take dragons.
Okay. What's the year now?
Anybody know? Snake. That's right. Yeah. Well, snakes are creepy all by themselves, So if you take a snake, I don't know. Can anybody relate?
You know what I got? Who's there who might go?
The sea serpent?
Yeah? What do you think?
Well, he's kind of big. You might have to buy him a seat. And you know what they say about snakes on a plane?
Yeah. Well, the snake, he could talk about, what could he talk about?
He's, the problem is?
What? What's the problem?
You're not very good with a snake.
Uh-huh. You mean like the character?
Yeah, the voice.
What do you mean not very good?
Well, you always give that phony Australian accent, it doesn't work.
I know. How about if we give the snake a southern accent?
Can you pull it off?
I don't know. Maybe he could be like a kind of a Mississippi bayou snake, maybe a Florida snake.
Well, maybe if you work on it. What's the point?
He could talk about climate change, and that if you don't stop melting the ice caps, he might wind up in New York City.
Yeah, that's got a point. Yeah. So, but that's a version. You should make him friendly, lovable.
Okay, so let's see. Southern accent, Florida bayou. What should it be?
Can snakes be vegetarians?
Are snakes vegetarian?
No, they eat birds, stuff like that. He could be I know. Why don't you make him a convert? He could make a vow. No more. He's going to be a vegetarian snake.
What would vegetarian snakes eat?
What was that? Crepe Suzettes.
What else?
What do vegetarian snakes eat? I need help. Tofurkey? There you go. Problem is, the vegetarians don't like tofurkey, That's a non-starter.
Okay, so,
Okay, well, we'll work on it. Okay, so should I go back and tell him that if you can make him small, don't have to buy a seat for him on the plane, put him in a bag, that the snake will go?
okay, I'm all right with that.
All right, so you all have to think about what the guy's going to eat and how to be a vegetarian convert when you're a big green snake. That's a problem, yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. It's very helpful.
That's good. Now, make sure that you say good words about me as union steward so I keep my job, right? Otherwise, you know what we're going to do? We're going to blow up the government.
No, you're not going to do that. Don't learn from the Tea Party. All right, thank you very much. So we'll take the snake. He's really big. He's like snakes on a plane. Interesting problems. Real world problems, right? Okay, so we're going to talk about, at VegSource, we're going to talk about the bigger picture behind food. Food, the bigger picture. So, where does your food come from? And how to relate to the how do we capture it? Jin Chuan, what was the deal? The food, yeah, food, all the dimension, food, the bigger picture, like that. I have to come up with a catchy title and send it to Jeff so he can put it on the program. Anyway, that's the challenge. And the keynote Friday night is Colin Campbell, Dr. Campbell, the China study, Colin Campbell, who's now, gosh, he's getting old and frail. And what that means is he's got to scale down his 10-mile morning runs at age 80. He's got to go down to like 2 miles. So those vegetarians, vegans. He's the one who says, my research tells me that the optimal amount of nutrition obtained from animal sources should be 0, he said. That's the way they talk at Cornell, right? The optimal amount of nutrition derived from animal sources is 0. So in other words, no meat is the best for you. And he's the guy who fearlessly took on the government health advisories that were saying 30% of protein derived from meat and fish was acceptable and optimal. And Colin Campbell looked at it and said, that absolutely is not corroborated by the data. Work from the data. And they said, well, we're working from the data. And he said, prove it, and they lost. He sued the government for falsely, why? Because, why were they doing it that way? It's because they were subsidized by the meat and dairy industries. And he proved it, and they lost. The government ate crow, no pun intended, and they had to tell the truth. Fearless man. And he was threatened by his department with being fired because Cornell was also on the take, and the pressure went down to fire him from his job, and he proved that. And, fearless man. Fire me, fine. Just tell the truth, is all he said. I'm after the truth, not my job, with that kind of bodhisattva courage. So this is a wonderful man. And Dr. Michael Clapper will be there again. Dr. John McDougall, of course, comes, and all of my heroes from the front lines of truth-telling about the human body and its best nutrition. These are people who are, year after year, they are fighting an uphill battle. Would you say that being a vegan is really popular these days? No. Cambridge, Massachusetts, not easy to get a good vegetarian meal. And that's Harvard, right? So these guys are unpopular. Even when people like Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn Jr. turns Bill Clinton into a vegan, and allows him to weigh what he weighed when he was a high school guy. Now, Bill Clinton weighs what he did in high school. And he's his face is bright, and he's healthy and happy. He's there for his daughter's grandchildren, Still not popular. Because why? The lobby behind the lies of Monsanto is so hard to stop. Monsanto has a lock on your grandchildren's life. Because they, what was the latest last week? Is, I know, Monarch Butterflies. How many Monarch Butterflies do you see this year, friends? The answer is probably none. Why? Monarch Butterflies eat what's the weed? Milkweed. Monarch butterflies eat milkweed. Milkweed is a weed. It used to cover America, right? It was native, good species, sturdy, hardy. Roundup, product made by Monsanto, was sprayed in excessive quantities all over the cornfields, the cotton fields, the soy fields, the wheat fields of America Milkweed's basically gone. And the butterflies have no more food. The monarch butterflies go from Maine to Mexico, where they grow. They grow in the mountains of Mexico. They fly up to Maine, they mate, and come back in a year. From Maine to Mexico, these little, not little, they're big butterflies, orange, black butterflies, flapping their wings, go Mexico to Maine to Mexico in 1 year. But now there's no food for them along the way. Can't find them this year. Everybody's worried monarchs didn't come this year. Why? No milkweed. Monsanto wiped it out. Roundup wiped it out. And bye. You know. You care? So what? Nice big orange and black butterflies? Got to draw a picture of them if you want your kids to know what they ever were. So, yeah, there you go. Anyway, once you get started on that one, it's heartbreaking. Because that profit goes into one board of directors, one bunch of stockholders. Monsanto. It's illegal to even sue them. You can't. You can't bring a lawsuit to Monsanto. It's illegal. Passed 3 months ago. They're immune to prosecution. Legal. Interesting. How did they do that? Well, the head of the regulatory agency used to be Monsanto's lawyer before he got appointed. So, okay, we've been there before. Never mind. Good luck. All right, so I'm going to be down at VegSource talking to the folks who are doing the research on this. And I'll be back with lots of new stories, and we're working on a new song to sing down there. So, okay, information for this week. Let's see, what do we want to pass on? What are our... Roundtable is this Thursday. Doug's class is Monday night. Those of you who know that, you're enrolled. What else have we got? Stephen Tainer's class begins Wednesday night, 7:30. Those of you who want to learn to meditate with Stephen. And Guanyin session begins next week. A week of reciting Guanyin Bodhisattva at City of 10,000 Buddhas. Buddhist, the walk. Yes. BGR. Buddhist Global Relief is going to be in 2 weeks. This coming Saturday. And it will be where this time? Okay. It's 12:45 afternoon. Okay, anybody who wants to walk for Buddhist Global Relief, that's fundraising for hunger, ending hunger programs, mostly in third world countries. Organized by who? Bhikkhu Bodhi is the spark plug behind BGR. We're on the board here. Ajahn Guna, remember, was the main organizer here. That is happening this coming Saturday, 12:45, starting at Gold Mountain. If you want to register, and they hope you will, talk to Angela. She'll give you the info on how to do that. It's a powerful experience to walk through San Francisco on behalf of hunger, ending hunger. I think it's also in Sacramento this year, and in LA. Where else? San Jose. Great. So if you're in the South Bay and you want to, how do they find about the one in San Jose? It's over. Oh, where have we been? Good. How many people showed up? Don't know? Okay, there we go. We'll find out. Kevin was there. Good. Okay. Stephen?
There's a documentary that's been out for a few weeks now called Inequality for All, which has been getting a lot of good... Oh, how exciting.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
So, is it on?
It is. Just yeah.
All right, so there's a documentary that's going, that's on now, and it's actually at the California Theater up on Kittredge called Inequality for All, about income inequality in the United States, specifically how it's grown for the last 30 years, sort of the hows and the whys that is happening. And it stars one of the Berkeley professors, Robert Reich, who was the labor secretary under Clinton, and I actually still remember seeing him on TV during that time. But
Me too,
it's a fascinating documentary, and he's a fascinating man. And on Wednesday at 7:30, after the showing, he will actually be at the theater to answer questions from people. So if, not to promote a competing event, but on Wednesday at 7:30 at the theater up the street there, you can actually see the documentary and talk to Robert Reich.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating film. Some of us just saw it this evening. So.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Inequality for All. It's his film, right? He's not just in it.
It's the director is a guy named Jacob Kornbluth.
Okay.
He's actually someone I know, and it actually stars him, but it's more broad than just being about who.
He is central in the film. Robert Reich, the former labor secretary under Clinton, is a Cal professor and outspoken and clear-seeing, and usually somebody you definitely want to listen to. He is in this film called Inequality for All, which talks about the gap between the 1% and everybody else, the rich, ultra-rich, and everyone else, and how they got there, and what we are doing to keep them there, etc., and the consequences of having that giant gap between the very, very few who have so much and everyone else who's getting along. China is quickly widening that gap. China's another place, and India too, where the tiny minority have the majority of the stuff. And what happens when that, well, in France, vive la révolution, égalité, fraternité, communauté, l'égalité, liberté, right? Liberty, equality, and fraternity in France led to the revolution. People lost their heads. What about us? No, when the minority have all the police with their big weapons, it's a different story. So, never mind. NSA, strike that from your tape. Okay, so we'll bow to the Buddhas. See you in a couple weeks.